So why do certain universities manage to do that and certain not? And it's not an American isolation. We have it in Sweden as too. We're actually quite black and white, amazingly enough. So this is something we need, and I have preached that many times in Singapore, that Singapore needed at least transiently to import researchers. And I also believe that Singapore needs to import innovators. So that is, of course, one way to do it. But at the end of the day, of course, you have to cultivate your own culture in the long run. And I would say for Guangzhou, it's very important, I think, not to take the route via the Harvard and then comes to this. You should take the quick route and be MIT-like and NTU-like directly. So that would be one of the advice I would like to give.
Thank you, Bertil. I think this is time for us to open the questions to the floor. Any questions from all our gathered audience here? 请各位观众踊跃的发言或者是提问。各位听众有什么问题吗？尤其是
Hello everyone. I have a question to the president of Common Foundations. As we know, U.S. have advanced the venture capital systems and the VC systems. But when we come to the knowledge city in Guangzhou, my question is that, can you give a little bit suggestion to Guangzhou city, how the venture capital systems work for Guangzhou? Can you share a little bit your experience? Thank you.
Thank you for your question.
Thank you.
As I understand it, you're asking about how would the experience in the United States move to Guangzhou as you consider the question of whether or not this new city can in fact be creative. Now, again, I would just repeat, we have to watch the mythological because there are many cities that declare they're going to do it. In fact, Kansas City says it's going to be this, and we've just spent $4 billion of new infrastructure downtown and new office buildings. Again, it's the culture of the city that will make the difference. So if I were to be looking out to places in America where it worked, I would look to Austin, Texas. I'd look to the Research Triangle Park in North Carolina. I'd look to Madison, Wisconsin. They do all have universities, but you have a university and you have other university partnerships like NTU that are coming to actually invent a much more porous environment where being a student, being an entrepreneur, being a professor, being an entrepreneur, it's a very blurred line. The goal of the city, the goal of the university, the goal of the student, the goal of the employee, the goal of the business owner, the goal of the entrepreneur is actually to create the new. It's very important, I think, to remember what entrepreneurs are, because oftentimes if you talk to a professor of entrepreneuring or entrepreneurship in the United States, if you listen carefully, that person is actually a professor of anthropology. They tell you about what entrepreneurs once did and how the tribe of entrepreneurs behaves. But they don't tell you how to start a new business because they don't know how. And I think the new learning that Kaufman is intent on establishing is not how to study entrepreneurship, but how to learn to start a business. This is the critical issue. And perhaps that's the best way to end. If you think about structuring the new city, the new knowledge city, maybe one of its mottos is, we're here to start businesses, not to learn about entrepreneurship from the United States or any place else. That's very interesting if you want to be an anthropologist. But if you want to be rich, we have to understand how to start a business.
If I could pitch in as well from the point of view of running a university, if we had, in trying to develop NTU, trying to say, let's be another Harvard or closer to home, another NUS in Singapore, we will not get to where we are. We basically have to take 就像汪洋书记说的弯路超车，有一个弯路的时候有一个超车的机会。So you have an opportunity to develop something unique because Guangdong, first of all, has the financial and the manpower resources, is an attractor of talent from all around the country in Singapore, in China. And at the same time, you have an open book to create a new model based on the past, but looking very much towards the future. And I think the most important thing, as Carl talked about, is a mindset. It's a mindset that we are not constrained by whatever is in the past and whatever was the study about other people's doing it. It is a mindset that we can create our own model. This is how Singapore developed as a outstanding economic development miracle over 40 years, because we never look at following other people. We just look at what is best, and we try to develop our own model. Similarly, I think NTU is developing into a fantastic university because we don't believe in following others. We develop our own model. Similarly, Guangzhou Knowledge City is an adventure that is going to develop its own model, and as a seed for Guangzhou and then for Guangdong and for the whole of China. So this is the mindset that you have to start with, and then be brave and bold and go forward and venture, and not to be afraid of failure. I think that's the main thing. That's my pitch of it. Any other?
You know, Wenning, if I could add to this, I think there's a dimension that we watch a spark fly between us. What Kanying said is something about Singapore. Singapore is a brand new city-state in relative historic times. China is a brand new nation in relative historic times. And it's curious to think how many times I come here and people proudly say, we've gone back to Stanford, Harvard, Yale, the regular cast of the established brand universities. And in a sense, it's like, let's go back to the history to figure out where we're going. And I think every part of the dimensioning of a new city has to be thought about in the new. What are those authorities? What is the brand useful for? And in many regards, it's important to think about this in terms of even how the disciplines collide. And I think one of the things you hear about NTU that is very intriguing is the notion that an engineering school has a design school. Now, when you throw those two things together, which would be unimaginable in the structure of many ancient universities, they couldn't begin to believe it. They wouldn't let the professors eat in the same club, let alone exist in the same schools. This is the type of collision of ideas that come from new institutions that are making the new, respecting the old, but not looking to the old as the blueprint for the new.
I'm afraid we are starting to run out of time, so I think we can take one final question.
Thank you. 刚才斯拉姆博士跟安博迪教授在演讲中多次提到这3个词，关键词：创新、创意、创业。我想问一下安博迪博士，这3者之间的关系，还要如何将这3者结合起来？这个理念在我们中心广州知识城设计上体现出来。谢谢。
Bertil, I don't know whether you got the question. It was directed at you. And creativity.
Of the 3 words, the most we know about is entrepreneurship. We might make it 4 words and put invention in there as well. And now we have a puzzle that will never be solved. There are no experts in innovation. I have been on 2 panels appointed by presidents of the United States, Bush and Obama, to measure innovation in the United States. And the panel I chaired for Bush basically said, it cannot be done. We cannot develop a statistical measurement to determine whether or not the United States is more innovative in 2010 than it was in 2000 or in 1990. It cannot be done. So there are no experts on innovation. If we can't measure innovation, we can't tell people or teach people how to be innovative. Second, it's the same thing with creativity. although with creativity we see indicia of creative populations. I would recommend the work of one of our senior fellows, one of the most respected people on creativity alive. He's 84. His name is Hollingsworth, Rogers Hollingsworth. And he's done extraordinary work on creativity, particularly in institutions, and finds that the Rockefeller Institute in New York has produced the highest rate of creative new ideas that meant something, were actionable, divided by the number of people doing it, the most productive science team in the world. And what does he say helps it along? It is non-bureaucratic, it is non-discipline based. So interdisciplinary is not even worked at. It is interdisciplinary by nature, and it is self-renewing as a result. So there's no bureaucracy, total boundless work, and huge amounts of dialogue amongst people who come from other disciplines, but over time don't see themselves as either apostles of, priests of, or captive of the discipline in which they were taught. They are making new knowledge without regard to discipline. In terms of entrepreneurship, we know what it is and we can actually measure it in terms of firm starts, but we don't know how to teach it, and we do not know how to determine a priori who is entrepreneurially inclined, who has a propensity or a talent for entrepreneurship. But we are able, once a person starts this road, to provide skill training as to how to increase success. And of all the questions you've asked, well, that is a very small amount of knowledge. It is, at the moment, all we have, and it is very critical knowledge.
I think one word that connects these is culture. I have been in the leadership of 2 Swedish universities. One university had about 5 startups around it. The other one has 300. In the latter university, I would have a group of scientists coming each week to me to discuss ideas. In the other university, no one dealt with these things. And why was this? I feel it's a lot of examples. You have a few senior high-level professors that actually sets the standards for the younger faculty. It becomes natural, not just to publish the results, but taking the net. It's a very subtle thing, and I feel this is something in NTU we are working now to create that culture. It also has to do with the students. I believe that you can study entrepreneurship, but in a way it's also experimental. I'm a biochemist, so I like experiments, and even with entrepreneurship. In Sweden, the chemical engineering students brewed their own beer, and the business school students sold it. That is entrepreneurship on the ground, and I believe in that you actually have to get the students to work with entrepreneurship within their extracurricular activities. I think that's important.
Okay, I think that's all the time we have for this first session. Leaves me to thank the 2 speakers for wonderful talks and enlightening all of us with your ideas and creativity and innovation. We won't talk about starting a business after that.